Welcome back to Twisted Minds. My name's James, and today we're going to be talking about the case of Christopher Dorner, the cop who went rogue. Most of us look to law enforcement for protection, considering them figures of authority that are tasked with the job of upkeeping law and maintaining order. Well, like anything in life, bad apples can sneak their way in and corrupt the establishment. This is definitely the case when it comes to the cold-hearted officer, Christopher Dorner. But the question is, was he originally the bad apple of the bunch, or could the outcome have been prevented if the truth had been told? Today's video is a classic case of he said, she said, which ultimately resulted in a bloodbath spanning just a few days. Christopher Jordan Dorner was born in 1979 in New York, but spent most of his early life in Los Angeles County, California, attending Norwalk Christian School from the 1st to 7th grade. According to Dorner, he was the only African-American student at Norwalk Christian School, which resulted in a lot of racism toward him by older students and teachers. In a manifesto this killer uploaded to Facebook, which we will get into later in this video, he describes how he would get into fights after being called racist names and then badly disciplined for it. Dorner later attended John F. Kennedy High School in La Palma and Cypress High School in Cypress, graduating in 1997. He also graduated from Southern Utah University in 2001 and left with a major in political science and a minor in psychology. Those of you who have watched our videos before will know that most of the worst killers are often the intellectual ones, plotting their evil deeds to evade the law. Dorner later became a Naval Reserve lieutenant and was eventually honorably discharged in 2013. During his time in this position, he commanded a security unit at Naval Air Station Fallon, Nevada, served with a mobile inshore undersea warfare unit, and was deployed to Bahrain with Coastal Ravine Group. In 2002, during his first year in the Naval Reserve, Dorner and a classmate found a bag containing almost $8,000 belonging to a church in Oklahoma. Now, although many of us would turn in that money for karma tokens, there are some of us who could really use $8,000. Well, Dorner decided that the money should be returned to where it belongs and handed the money to the police. An act that gives an interesting insight into the psychology of this man. In fact, when Dorner was asked why he did that, he said, "It's an integrity thing. The military stresses integrity. There was a couple of $1,000s, and if people are willing to give that to a church, it must be pretty important to them." It is this compulsion to act on his morals and personal beliefs that would result in a string of murders and his eventual downfall. Christopher Dorner joined the Los Angeles Police Department in 2005 and completed the police academy training in 2006. Although his first year on the force was pretty uneventful, in 2007, Dorner and his training officer, Teresa Evans, went to the DoubleTree Hotel in San Pedro to deal with a mentally ill man, Christopher Gettler, who was causing a commotion. 2 weeks after the call-out, Evans gave Dorner a performance review that noted that Dorner needed to improve on his approach with people. Now, no one likes criticism, but Dorner took it to the next level. In retaliation, Dorner filed a report accusing Evans of violently dealing with Gettler. He accused his colleague of kicking him in the face twice while he was handcuffed and lying on the ground. An internal review board investigated the claims and listened to the testimony of several witnesses who were at the hotel that day. The claims were backed up by Christopher Gettler's father, who testified that after his son had returned home, his face was puffy. When asked what happened, Gettler explained that a police officer had kicked him in the face. During the inquiries, Gettler claimed that he had been kicked in the face by a female officer with dark hair, but corrected himself to light hair, which matched the appearance of Evans. This is where things get a little more confusing, as 3 witnesses, including 2 hotel employees and a port police officer, testified that they didn't see anyone kick Gettler while in the 2 officers' custody. Eventually, the board's 3 members, 2 LAPD captains, and a criminal defense attorney decided that Dorner's claims were false and were just made to serve his own bacon over the performance review that he feared could end his career. As a result of the saga, Dorner was fired from the force in 2008. In 2010, the former police officer tried to win back his career and managed to get the case examined by the Los Angeles County Superior Court. Unfortunately, this did not work out for Dorner, with Judge David P. Yaff upholding the initial decision he made 2 years previously. He stated that although nobody knows for sure who kicked Gettler, Dorner could still be legally dismissed because of the false police report he made. This, of course, made Dorner incredibly angry. The self-proclaimed man of integrity began a series of appeals, all of which failed to reinstate him as a police officer. So, if Dorner's claims were correct and his dismissal was completely undeserved, what would be the motive for the LAPD to do this? Well, Dorner claimed that it was his racist colleagues who wanted the man gone, discrimination that had plagued him since his days at elementary school, which continued to destroy his life. Feeling trapped, cheated, and abused, he finally decided that he was no longer going to take the injustice anymore. Dorner started his campaign of blood on February 1st, 2013, when he sent a package to CNN, stating his complaints about the system and how he was cheated out of a career. On the 3rd of February 2003, the daughter of former LAPD captain Rachel Kwan, who just happened to be the representative of Christopher Dorner during the Gettler case, was found dead. Monica Kwan and her fiancé Keith Lawrence had been gunned down together while inside an Irvine parking garage. The couple had met at Cordia University in Irvine, where they both played on the school's basketball team. It was clear that Dorner was to blame, as 3 days later, he made a Facebook post stating that the Kwan family were his targets. On February 4th, Dorner uploaded a 6,000-word rambling post on Facebook, which would later be known as the Manifesto. In this post, he explained his motivations for the crimes and how it was a matter of integrity. The KTLA television station published the manifesto with all the names and parties named, although the details were later redacted. In the document, he swore that he did not use any excessive, for on the night he was called to Gettler, but lost his job anyway. He also complained that Officer Evans, who he accused of kicking Gettler, didn't have any action made against her. The manifesto ultimately acted as a threat against the LAPD. He wanted them to admit that he lost his job for doing the right thing by bringing his colleagues' abuse to light. On February 7th, 2 LAPD officers were driving a protection detail for another officer that was on Dorner's hit list. Along the route, they were flagged down by R.L. McDaniel at around 1 a.m. in the morning. McDaniel reported seeing a man watching Dorner's description at a gas station in California. The 2 officers quickly went to investigate the report and eventually began following a pickup truck they believed to be Dorner's. All of a sudden, the truck stopped, and the driver hopped out with a rifle in hand. Like a Hollywood cliche, Dorner began firing at the police car, grazing the head of one of the officers. The suspect managed to get away, but just 20 minutes later, 2 other officers in the Riverside Police Department stopped at a red light. While waiting, Dorner crept up and shot Michael Crane and another officer. Crane died almost instantly, while the other officer was taken to hospital in critical condition. Miraculously, the officer made a recovery after having life-saving surgery. Almost an hour and a half after the killing of Michael Crane, at around 3 a.m., Dorner tried to steal a boat in San Diego, telling the ship's captain that he would sail the boat to Mexico. A few hours later, the dark gray 2005 Nissan pickup truck was found on a remote trail near Big Bear Lake, ravaged by flames. Although this left no evidence for the police, it let them know that Dorner was in the area and a widespread search began. Panic ensued in Bear Valley and schools were placed in lockdown. while 125 police officers went door to door looking for the cop killer. The authorities eventually offered a hefty $1 million reward for anyone who could turn in the fugitive, calling the cop killer a domestic terrorist for the first time. Multiple sites and tip-offs were made, including the Lowe's home improvement store in Northridge, Los Angeles, and a hotel in Tijuana, Mexico, but none of them turned out to be real leads. Ironically, the sheriff in San Bernardino County District decided to take a leaf out of Dorner's book and use social media in his campaign. In a tweet, he said, "The sheriff has asked all members of the press to stop tweeting immediately. It is hindering officer safety. Hashtag Dorner," a message that was later deleted. On February 12, 2013, Christopher Dorner tied up a married couple who had found him in their house near Clubview Drive, south of Big Bear Lake, California. Letting them live, he left the house in a stolen vehicle. The tied-up woman managed to struggle free and call the police, causing another manhunt to begin in the area. At 12:45 p.m., wardens from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife spotted Dorner traveling down California State Route 38. After noticing the prying eyes, Dorner began shooting at the car, with one of the game wardens responding by firing back. Dorner was eventually cornered by San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department in the mountains near Angeles Oaks. This erupted in a gunfight that would make Clint Eastwood blush. Unfortunately, 2 deputies were wounded, with one of them dying of their wounds. A few hours later, Dorner decided to hide out in a cabin in Angeles Oaks, a location that didn't offer much protection for Dorner as it began to burn out and the ammunition stored inside exploded like it was the 4th of July. Now, the cause of the fire is up for speculation, with an investigative journalist claiming that police had deliberately set the cabin on fire to smoke the fugitive out. Officers over the police radio were heard saying, "We're gonna go ahead with the plan with the burner. The burner's deployed and we have a fire. Burn that house down. Burn this motherfucker." These claims are pretty grisly, especially coming from law enforcement. We have to remember that those who allegedly said these things might have known the officers who had been shot dead by a man who also took up the vow of law. Another explanation to how the cabin caught fire was given by San Bernardino County Sheriff John McCaughan, who said that his officers shot pyrotechnic tear gas into the cabin, which then caught fire. After firefighters tackled the blaze, officers discovered a wallet with a driver's license belonging to Christopher Dorner inside the charred building. Dental records during the autopsy also backed the identification up, as well as stating that Dorner had died from a single self-inflicted gunshot to the head. In a press conference, the Sheriff Department's captain, Greg Herbert, explained that the canister was a last-ditch attempt to stop Dorner, with the likelihood of a fire being relatively high. But the big question is, was Dorner already dead when the canister went in? Or did he kill himself after knowing that he was stuck between a wall of flames and a wall of police officers seeking revenge for their fallen brothers in blue? There are several people who believe that Christopher Dorner was actually the hero of this story, and that he was only sticking up for himself and bringing to light the corruption running rampant throughout law enforcement. If that is the truth, however, how would that justify killing Monica Kwan and her fiancé Keith Lawrence, just for being related to the police captain he believed wronged him? Not to mention the other officers who had nothing to do with his dismissal, but left grieving family and friends behind. Thanks for tuning in to Twisted Minds. That was the case of Christopher Dorner, aka the Cop Killer. Oh, and why don't you go ahead and click on one of the 2 videos on screen for another one of our videos.